Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing the Master League team that helped me climb up to number 5 in the entire world on the Pokemon Go Battle League leaderboards. And that team is built around an unexpected Pokemon, Kartana. Kartana was recommended to me by a fellow battler, Famo, as it does an amazing job at breaking the Rhyperior plus Fairy Core. To cover against Kartana's weaknesses, I'm running it with Zacian and Rhyperior to cover against Pokemon like Ho-Oh. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at Kartana getting number 5 in the entire world. Hopping into the first match, and right away our target has been acquired, Kartana into Rhyperior. Opponent safe switches into Zacian, but this is not a good answer to a Kartana that has 2 shields to hide behind. These Razor Leafs are tearing through the Zacian. Leaf Blade is going to grab the shield. It doesn't matter what they throw, I'm going to be shielding. Kartana is too frail. They will go for a play rough bait. I'm going to farm up, switch into the Zacian as they make it to a potential close combat. Opponent, they're actually not running close combat, instead they're running Wild Charge, but that is going to set up a very nice quick attack farm down by the Zacian. In comes Rhyperior, and I'm going to look to farm up as much energy as possible, going for the close combat right before they receive the energy for the Rock Wrecker. Close combat is going to connect. Opponent does not undertap, so I actually get a second close combat. They're going to shield and try and exit with energy to take care of the Kartana. However, I can just bring in my own Rhyperior and completely neutralize their energy. So they will go for the Breaking Swipe. That's not going to do a lot. In the back is Primarina. I can make it to a move on the Kartana. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We've got a massive problem on the lead in the next match, and its name is Enamorus. Enamorus is a huge core breaker for this team, as it absolutely shreds Rhyperior, and it can outpace the Kartana severely. My opponent is going to throw a fly into the Zacian safe switch and now send out Rhyperior. Rhyperior is going to be hit with the back-to-back close combats. That will inflict massive damage. I was hoping for the CMP tie, but my opponent will not fall for it. They shield, making a play for switch. I bring in my own Rhyperior just to absorb the energy from theirs, and I will look to just commit to the farm down. My hope is that I know Enamorus is very glassy, so I am hoping that I can Razor Leaf through the Enamorus. I bank a move, send in Kartana, in comes the Enamorus, and look at that. The Razor Leafs are adding up. Enamorus so deadly, but its biggest flaw is its lack of bulk. Look at the Razor Leafs go. Kartana putting in tremendous work. It looks like if I don't throw anything and I just farm, I can get the full farm down. Back in comes the Palkia, and I should make double Leaf Blade. Now I'm going to have to try and successfully snipe with a move on my Rhyperior. I think it's too obvious to switch instantly, so I'm going to throw one Razor Leaf and then go for the snipe, but my opponent reads me perfectly. They anticipate my play exactly. They deny the energy, and now it's going to be a race, but the Razor Leafs KO before they're able to make a move, and we're able to take the win. We see a disastrously bad lead in the next match, leading into Ho-Oh. I'm going to save switch into Zacian. Zacian farming up a ton of energy, and I will look to connect with a Wild Charge. Wild Charge would not KO, but it would do a lot of damage. I'm not quite sure how that was a CMP tie. I believe there should have been one turn of differential there. I don't know if my game stuttered or something. My opponent now sends in Zygarde, and this is unfortunate because I'm not running Play Rough. You could probably run Play Rough on Zacian with this team. I just didn't want to use Charge TMs. They go for the Bulldoze, that does laughable damage, and I am going to return fire with a close combat purely just to burn the switch timer. Now I can send in Kartana. Kartana more than happy to absorb a Bulldoze, as Bulldoze is a truly terrible move. The switch clock still not yet up. Opponent does get the debuff, but that's very fine. I'm going to overfarm as much as I can and fire off the Leaf Blade. Opponent now does have a Bulldoze rebanked. Switch timer's up, in comes Ho-Oh, and I will get immediately KO'd by the Incinerate. I'm going to send in Rhyperior. Rhyperior farming up. I do actually win the CMP tie over Ho-Oh, so I'm going to go for this Rock Wrecker right away. Rock Wrecker is going to be no-shielded. Ho-Oh does get one hit KO'd, and what do they have as their final Pokemon? They're going to send in Zygarde. They throw the Bulldoze. Bulldoze does like no damage, so I'm never going to be shielding this. I tank that very comfortably, get a very nice farm down of the Zygarde. In the back is Palkia, and I should be in a winning position. Even though I don't have Breaking Swipe, Rock Wrecker actually does more damage than Breaking Swipe in this matchup. So I'm more than happy just to fire off the Rock Wrecker, as Rock Wrecker will inflict some massive damage to my opponent. This is very close to Rock Wrecker range, and I do have a move loaded on the Zacian as well. Rock Wrecker gets him to 1 HP, quick snipe with a quick attack, and the game is a win. We move to the next match, leading Kartana against Palkia. This matchup is deceptively not amazing for Kartana. Kartana's farming up. The opponent does not build up to a Spatial Rend, however, so I'm very fine just tanking an Aqua Tail and looking to fire off the Leaf Blade. As Leaf Blade will pick up the KO here if they let it through, opponent will commit the shield, and they're going to go for a full farm down. But I can send in Zacian and force them to waste their energy. Opponent is not going to let that happen though. Instead, they're going to pivot out into their own Zacian, and I'm going to look to farm up to the back-to-back wild charges. I want to absorb energy from my opponent's Zacian before I throw mine, because of course Wild Charge is going to debuff my defense. I'm going for the Wild Charge. This will not be able to pick up the knockout, but the second one definitely will. So I will fire off this Wild Charge. Wild Charge is going to be no-shielded by my opponent. In the back is Duskmane, and Duskmane will immediately be answered with the Rhyperior. Rhyperior forced to shield as a Sunsteel Strike would be devastating. Opponent is going to go for the Dark Pulse bait, and now I will fire off the Surf. Surf will hit for some solid neutral damage here. Opponent is going to let it through, and they will concede the match. We see a terrible lead in the next match. Kartana into a Veltol to safe switch into Zacian, and my opponent is going to respond with Duskmane. Duskmane is farming up. They throw short of a Sunsteel Strike, so at worst, this is going to be an Iron Head, and it is. Iron Head, significant damage to the Zacian, but I'm able to hang on and make the double Wild Charge. And double Wild Charge is enough to threaten a shield or flip switch versus the Duskmane. Duskmane is going to commit the shield, and since they're on Iron Head, they're probably Iron Head Outrage, which means that Kartana would actually wall their moveset. So I am going to send in Kartana just to absorb energy. They go for the Outrage, that does quite a lot of damage, and now I can send in Rhyperior. In the back is Palkia, and this looks playable. If you're able to land the Rock Wrecker as Rhyperior, you can one shield farm down in this matchup. I land the Rock Wrecker, that's huge, and look how much damage that does. The damage difference between Rock Wrecker and Breaking Swipe is absolutely mental. Here I do get that full farm down, and now I think I'm in a winning position. But Duskmane, it makes an Iron Head, and suddenly it all goes wrong. In evens, I can just win, but now I don't have a shield for Rhyperior to hide behind, and I will get outpaced by a Veltol. I'm going to throw 2 Mud Slaps, wait the turn, get the catch onto Kartana, and we are back in this game. The undercharge to try and get energy, but they're not going to make it to the Oblivion Wing before the Rock Wrecker is reached. Rock Wrecker does not quite one-shot, but they've taken a little bit of damage. It KOs, and we clutch an improbable win. We move to the next match, Kartana versus Zacian. Now this is a matchup, as long as shields are up in the 2s, Kartana can do well here, but realistically, I don't necessarily want to give up both my shields right away at the start of the match. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the shield, wait till they get to 12 quick attacks, and switch into my own Zacian, hoping to catch the close combat. And I do catch the close combat. That is massive. Now my opponent is heavily debuffed. They're going to bank a ton of energy, switch in Rhyperior, and Rhyperior is now going to be met with back-to-back close combats from the Zacian. Close combat number 1 is going to connect. I make close combat number 2, and now they have a choice to make. They have the energy for a Rock Wrecker, but they have to shield if they want to keep that energy, and they do exactly that. They will get a farm down, my Zacian barely not being able to hang on, and now I can just bring in my own Rhyperior, absorb their energy, and look to farm down, and Rhyperior up 2 shields is basically unbeatable unless they have a Waterfall user, and the opponent will resign the match. Hopping into the next match, Kartana versus a Dawnwings. So this is a bit of an awkward lead, as Dawnwings, of course, is going to do incredibly well into the Quick Attack Zacian as well, so I'm kind of forced to stay in with Kartana and play it out. Kartana will fire off the Night Slash, opponent is going to commit the shield, and it's a CMP tie. I'm just going to let this go and let Kartana get knocked out. They're actually running Iron Head, and to me that's a little bit worse, as now they get a bunch of farm exiting this matchup, and I won't get as much farm on my Rhyperior. So I do have to bring in Rhyperior because I need some kind of fast move pressure into the Dawnwings. I'm not going to be able to quick attack down a Ghost type. I will respect the Iron Head. Opponent is going to pivot out into their own Zacian. Well, I can do a ton of damage with the Rock Wrecker and then potentially look to pivot out. So I fire off the Rock Wrecker, they shield, and that shield right there makes me think that they are actually going to be weak. I farm up a bunch of Mud Slaps, wait a turn, and again try for a close combat catch, but this time I end up catching a Play Rough, as it appears my opponent is actually not running close combat. I do make it to the Wild Charge. My Zacian does have the best buddy badge equipped, so that way I'm able to win the CMP tie in the mirror. Opponent is going to return fire. They'll be able to knock me out here, but that's very fine. I just want energy on Rhyperior. Rhyperior up energy is so deadly. In the back is Dialga, and with a shield to hide behind, this is a win. I could just one shield farm all the way down, but being able to throw a Rock Wrecker will make this game go a lot faster. Opponent realizes there's not a win con, and they will concede the match. Kartana versus Zacian, another very solid lead. Again, I'm going to try and go for a potential close combat catch. This is a Snarl Zacian, though. I haven't seen a Snarl Zacian in quite some time. So, since they're Snarl, it does make the timing of it all a little more uncomfortable. I'm going to shield the first. They did go for a Play Rough bait, and now I will fire off the Leaf Blade. That's going to grab the shield. I switch, trying for a close combat catch, but I'm not successful, and now I will be hit with a Play Rough. Play Rough is going to connect, but since they're Snarl, they have no fast move pressure here, so I'm not in danger of a second move knocking me out. So I'm very okay tanking this and just committing to a farm down. Opponent is going to switch out into Kyogre, and I make the Wild Charge. This will inflict some serious damage. That shield is a massive surprise to me because they know I have a Kartana, and the Kartana will outpace them, make it to a Leaf Blade. Kartana has a stupendous attack stat. Leaf Blade KOs. They send in Zacian. That's getting farmed down, and I'll never know what they had in the back because they resigned before I was able to see it. Bad lead in the next match, we run into another Yveltal. I safe switch into Zacian. Opponent is going to respond with their own Zacian, but they have the shiny, so they automatically have an advantage because their Zacian looks way cooler than mine. They will go for a Play Rough, very fine to absorb that damage before I debuff my defense with a Wild Charge. I will be able to overfarm a decent amount in this matchup because they were behind on energy and they went for the more expensive Play Rough. Now I can look to deliver a knockout with a Wild Charge. Wild Charge into the Zacian will be no-shielded, and the opponent will get KO'd. Back in comes Yveltal. Yveltal will be hit with the Wild Charge. Wild Charge is going to be shielded, so they do have quite a bit of energy, but they're down a shield. In comes Rhyperior, and I should be in a pretty okay position. I can outpace them, so I should be able to do 3 in the move and outpace, but in the back of my mind, I'm worried about a catch. So I'm going to overfarm, and unfortunately, that allows them to get to a move, and now I'm forced to give up the final shield, and that's a pretty massive misplay because now my opponent is probably just going to let this go and take shield advantage for whatever their final Pokemon is. Rock Wrecker will pick up the KO. In the back is Dawn Wings, and I threw this game. By letting them force the final shield, I absolutely threw this game. Now I'm just in trouble. I'm farming up, but they throw the Dark Pulse right away. It's going to deliver a knockout. Oh, they're actually on Iron Head there. And now, unfortunately, my Kartana is just too far away from a move. Kartana, not the fastest. I do get outpaced as it's 9 to make it to the game-winning Night Slash. They make the Moongeist in 8. And unfortunately, we do lose that game, and that battler was actually someone on my friends list who I queued into in GBL. We see a dream lead in the next match as Rhyperior is on the lead once again. They safe switch into Yveltal, and I will respond with my best answer, which is Zacian. But again, this matchup a lot less comfortable for Zacian if you don't have Play Rough, just due to the fact that if you tank an Oblivion Wing and lower your defense, suddenly those Sucker Punches almost look super effective and they have a chance to farm you down. My opponent doesn't fight for Switch, which was a massive surprise to me. They end up just letting it go. They can bring back in the Rhyperior, but Rhyperior would be taking super effective damage, so instead they bring in Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu will be hit with Wild Charge number 1, followed by Wild Charge number 2, and this Tapu Bulu Rhyperior core is unfortunately a little bit weak to Kartana. I can now send in Kartana. Kartana is going to be resisting the Nature's Madness, although not by much because it is still a Kartana. It's insanely glassy. And as you can see, that resisted move did over half my health. Now my defense is 1 stage debuff, now 2 stage debuffs. I switch out into Rhyperior as my opponent looks to try and snipe me down with Mud Slaps once my defense is debuffed. Now you may have been wondering throughout the course of the battle, why Surf? Well, for this exact moment. I mean, Breaking Swipe is generally better, but the Surf Surprise in the mirror is incredible. They never see it coming. In comes the Tapu Bulu. They have to try and commit to a farm down, but I get the Mud Slap down first and take the win. Hopping into the final match, Kartana into another Zacian. We know how we like to play this. Farm up, force a shield with the Leaf Blade, and look to catch a close combat onto my own Zacian on 12. farm it up, firing off the Leaf Blade. This will be grabbing a shield. They have too much energy. They cannot afford to let this go. I farm up, switch into my own Zacian, and again, we get the catch. Let's go. It is going to be the close combat, not going to do a lot of damage. In comes a Shadow Rhyperior. Shadow Rhyperior will instantly be met with the close combat, making sure to throw right before they get the energy for the Rock Wrecker. Now here, I'm actually not in a range even at -2 defense where a Breaking Swipe will KO. I hope they Rock Wrecker, but they actually make a pretty decent play by Breaking Swiping because I can pick up a knockout, but they're fine with that. What they want is energy on the Zacian, and that's exactly what they're going to get. Now Zacian will be able to make it to 2 moves versus my Kartana. And as we've seen from Kartana, it's taking no hits, so this forces a double shield. I'm going to go from 2 shields to 0 in the blink of an eye, and I have to hope that down a shield, I can win this endgame. In the back, oh no, it's Dialga. I bank a move for later, send in Rhyperior. I need to make the Rock Wrecker. My opponent is going to play to the CMP tie. Ironhead is super effective damage, but Rhyperior is an absolute tank, tanking that like a champion. They know I have the Night Slash loaded. They're going to no shield. I do get one more Mud Slap, and now I have to try and double resisted Razor Leaf down a Dialga. Kartana with the clutch of a lifetime, Razor Leafing down the Dialga, and that is a good game. All in all, I had a pretty crazy run with this team, I believe going 11-3 over the 14 games that I played with it. So the team worked great for the meta that it was in. Do I think the team's success could be replicated in every elo range? Honestly, I'm not sure. The elo range at the time in the 2600s was a lot of Rhyperior plus Fairy, and Kartana was very well positioned to absolutely destroy those teams. But I know that at different elo ranges, there's going to be different strategies that are the top performers, so I'm not sure if this is a team I could definitely recommend as a top elo gainer, as Kartana is oftentimes more of a meme pick. It just happened to be insanely strong in last night's 2600s meta. And I'm thrilled because number 5 in the world is the highest ever leaderboard placement that I've been able to achieve. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.